So, thank you very much for joining my talk. It's Saturday, it's a very nice day, so thank you that you are here. And this talk will be about technical documentation. How can I write them better, and why should I care? And when I say I of course also mean you. But first of all, I'm gonna introduce myself a bit. Hi, my name is Hila Fish. I'm a senior DevOps engineer and I work for Wix. For those of you who don't know, Wix is a company that provides a platform for building websites, either for tech-savvy people or not. I'm a senior DevOps engineer there, and I'm gonna cover how documentation is a part of my day-to-day, but also applies to any job that you have in the high-tech industry. I have 15 years of experience in the tech industry. I'm a firm believer in communities, so that's why I'm a very, I can say, activist in communities. I'm a part of AWS Community Builder program, which allows me to connect with like-minded people and get exposed to cool AWS services. Recently, I've also got recognized as a HashiCorp ambassador because I talk about Terraform a lot. I am a co-organizer of a conference in Israel where I live, DevOps Days Tel Aviv, which is the largest DevOps Days event in the entire world. I'm a mentor in courses and communities. We have communities in Israel for technical women in tech, so I have programs there to help them give talks in conferences, and I'm responsible for the social gathering to make sure that people are more connecting with each other. I'm also a co-manager in a pull request community, which is a community for open source, so I'm a firm believer in communities. I am a DevOps culture fan. I think this is what helps companies achieve great things. And as you can see in this picture, on my spare time, I'm a lead singer in a cover band, and it's a lot of fun. And a fun fact, I was in conference on December right here on this stage, and they made me sing at the end. So we will see what you would want to. If you would want to, I would sing, but let's see. Thank you. Okay, so I believe that anyone can and should write technical documentation, and I will explain why in a bit, but just to give a first explanation to that is that as DevOps engineers, as developers, we need to manage incidents, production incidents, and not always we know what to do. Sometimes there are things that related to some tasks that my other team members did and stuff like that. So a lot of the times we need runbooks in order to understand what we need to do. And runbooks, if you don't know, is like a playbook that describes what to do in this scenario that you have. Sometimes if you need to exercise some judgment, then if this happens, you need to check this. If this happens, you need to check that, and stuff like that. So runbooks are very, very helpful, especially if I don't know what is this incident about. So in the middle of the night, when I have an incident, I really, really don't care if the runbook is written in a lousy English or fabulous one. As long as I have a runbook that helps me solve the issue and help decrease the downtime, this is all I care about. So that's why if you have knowledge, please share it forward. Everyone will thank you. Both your team members, managers, other teams, and even the future you, because if you did something and then a year later you need to maintain it, it doesn't mean that you will remember what you did. So if you have technical documentation to cover what you did, this is awesome. So I also like to say that if you can't automate it, then document it. And a lot of things that you can have in your day-to-day can be considered as technical documentation. So the most obvious one is system logical design, but also stuff like on-call runbooks that I just mentioned, code readmes. Sometimes we need to explain functionalities in our code, explain other functions, explain why we did this and not that, why, especially in a code which is a spaghetti code, we need to explain what's going on in order to maintain it better. So this documentation is very, very important too. Onboarding docs, if we have team members that needs to go to our team, they can onboard themselves and not have a buddy to accompany them if they have an onboarding doc that will help them know what they need to learn in order to get progress to the role itself. Even Slack pinned messages, because as we said, technical documentation is all about the knowledge. So even Slack pinned messages, you can share knowledge, put in a Slack pinned message, and that's it. People will get back to it, and it will be very beneficial for them. And even a project planning doc. I In this presentation, I'm pretty much that I'm gonna mention the GitLab migration project that I did in my previous job. So I had a planning doc for that project, and it helped convey things in a way that my manager could understand the status of the project and a lot of other good things. So I don't say, and I don't make you write technical documentation for all of these, but even if you will exercise and write for any of those, it will be super, super helpful for anyone around you. So this is something that I want to ask you, folks. Did you ever heard this sentence before or said this sentence before? My code is self-documented. Please raise your hand. Okay, a lot of hands raising. That's exactly it. And I heard a lot of things throughout my career, like the code tells a story. No, it doesn't. It never is the case, okay? The code doesn't tell a story. It's not really clear what's going on in a spaghetti code, even in a code that was just written. It's not always understandable what's going on. Why did you choose this and that? Why didn't follow, do not repeat yourself, and other clean code best practices. So we need to explain intentions, reasoning, a lot of things. So the code is not self-documented, and we need to follow it up with documentation in order to explain things better. So if I didn't convince you until now, I'm going to cover some more explanations of why should you write technical documentation. So first of all, to reduce your work volume. And then you can ask, wait, reduce your work volume? Because if I sit down and I write documentation, then I waste time on documentation. It doesn't save me time. So I will give you an example to explain what I'm meaning here. In my previous job, as a DevOps engineer, I'm getting approached by a lot of people, QA engineers, developers, and they basically ask me a lot of the times the same questions, like, we had Kubernetes, how do I troubleshoot this pod? It's red, what do I do about it? And how do I do this, and how do I do this, and stuff like that. And then I collected all the questions that got repeated. I created a document, and I called it Tips and Tricks by DevOps. It was during COVID, so I had like a Zoom meeting, and I invited everyone to go over the document. And then after I gave them this document, from 7 or 8 times a day that I got approached, it got reduced to 1 or 2 times a day. This is awesome for me because I can then invest my time in other tasks that I have, and I can help them, which brings me to the next point. I can help them do self-service. Because if they have this document, they can help themselves, and they are not relying on me to help them, and then I'm a bottleneck for them. So documents can really be helpful for a self-service enablement, and also to increase their velocity. So the GitLab migration that I did, there's a lot of information out there about GitLab, but I still created and curated a document specifically for our development teams to help them adopt GitLab faster, which was cool because they need to use it as quick as possible because of the migration. So this helped them as well. Onboarding docs, we mentioned it, that if we have onboarding docs, they can onboard themselves to the team and then progress quicker and get integrated into the team quicker. And in terms of their velocity, any docs with troubleshooting could help them increase their velocity, and even Slack bots. You can create Slack bots to help with Q&As. This could help as well. Eliminate production incidents quicker. As I mentioned, runbooks. It's very good because that way, if we have an issue, you can solve it. Decrease the MTTR, mean time to resolution, and then help the company meet their SLAs, and also help you go back to sleep faster. Also, another reason why to write technical documentation is to avoid single point of failure or a bottleneck, which is you. So I'll ask you this rhetorical question. Do you want to go on vacation and still be available to work calls, or do you want to go with a clear mind, right? We want to make sure that we can go to a vacation and not have people bug us while on vacation. And I also say it here, job security is dead. Okay, so please share the knowledge. And anyway, AI will take our jobs, so let's try to prevent it and share the knowledge and not let it do it. It will also help make things clear for you or the future you. Because once you structure things and write them in a clear manner, then it will organize it in your mind as well. And then also intentions, reasoning, anything that is not straightforward, then it could also help you understand what's going on there, especially if something that you did and you need to step away and go to other projects, then you come back to it after 2 months, 6 months, 2 years, then in the future you will still know what's going on because you documented it. Visibility. It could potentially attract focus to the things that you do at work, which in turn will help you progress your career. And also communicate things better to your managers, because a lot of people write in their CVs, I'm a team player, right? It doesn't mean anything. How can you really convey that you're a team player? If you really care about sharing the knowledge, then you write technical documentation, and then people can use that documentation and really know that you're a team player because you care about sharing the knowledge. So visibility is very, very important, both for communication to your managers, but also for your career, because as a lot of people do a lot of things, and you don't even know the things, other people don't know what you did until you publicly talk about it. So be visible about it, people will know what you did, and then we'll come to you to consultation and offer you projects. A lot of good things can come out of this. And last but not least, it could help you understand why we're doing things in a certain way. Because the migration that I did, I had this document where I put a lot of things like how to upgrade, but also why did we set certificates here and how to upgrade and replace the certificates. And for Terraform, why is the module complex? Because it should be simple. Is there a specific reason for that? And we talked about clean best code practices. Why did I choose to do not repeat yourself, and I did repeat myself here? Is it because I'm a junior, or because I had a very good reason to do that? So a lot of the things is very important to really understand what's going on, and also to defend the decisions that we are taking. Because if we don't know what's going on, other people saw something that I did. For example, for the GitLab, I chose DB version X. It's not a default version. Why did I choose this version? They maybe think that I did a mistake and will revert it and that's it, but I had a very good reason to choose this version. So defend the decisions that we were taking and communicate them to others. And also, writing the technical documentation will also make you ask the whys. And asking the whys will also and always make you be a better engineer, because understanding the why is like connecting yourself to the business and understanding why we're doing things the way that we do them. Okay, so I covered here a lot of reasons why you should write technical documentation. I really hope that I convinced you. If not, you can catch me after the break and we will talk about it. But now I want to cover here how to write technical documentation without being a technical writer, because a lot of people say, hey, my English is lousy, I should probably not write technical documentation. And I want to show you that you don't have to be a very good writer in order to write it, because you have the knowledge. As long as you have the knowledge, you should share and pass it forward. So the first thing that you should do once you get approached to write a technical document is to know your audience. We have two types of audiences or types of documents: for internal use, like system design, and external use, like API documentation. So based on your audience, you will know what needs to be covered and to which extent. And this is your time to plan and write in bullet points what you're going to cover in your doc, because not always you have the time to write it fully. So at least write it in bullet points so you can come back to it later and then elaborate once you have the time. So for documents for internal use, like being a maintainer of a system, you should write the things that you worked on while working on them, because as we know, things are still fresh in our minds, so we need to write it while it's still fresh. Things that bugged you. Once I worked on the GitLab migration, I even documented in the document how to open a ticket to the GitLab support in a way that will avoid the ping pong between the team and them. Because it happened to me. I opened a ticket, I waited 2 or 3 days for them to come back to me, and then they said, please send logs. And there's always the same way to send logs. They have like a CLI command that I need to run. So if I do it in advance, I run the command in advance, then I can avoid the 2 or 3 days that I waited just for them to send me the CLI. So I even documented this because it bugged me that I need to wait and have them send me, even though I could just send it in advance. So anything like that, you should also cover as well. And also things that aren't clear or straightforward. So as I mentioned, the GitLab DB version, why did I choose version X and not a Y, even though Y is the default one? And anything about the code is not clear, then explain the flow and describe actual functions and stuff like that. For external use, any documents for users or consumers, you should write what is it about and possible use cases and quick start. You should write any quirks or issues and things to consider when using this X, and also examples, both simple and complex, so the user could benefit and really be able to use whatever you are writing about. The second phase of writing a technical document is to decide or abide upon documentation type. So we have two documentation types: docs in KB, knowledge base, like Confluence or any other tool that you are using, or docs as code. Docs as code is basically to interact with docs in your IDE. And basically, docs are fully integrated into the dev toolchain. And I'm going to cover more a bit about docs as code in a bit. So when I say decide or abide upon, maybe you have docs in a knowledge base and you just have to use it because the entire company is using it. Or maybe you're a decision maker and say, hey, I saw this presentation and I didn't know about docs as code and it sounds cool, let's move to that. So if you can move to that, I really recommend it. If not, and you can only stay with docs in a knowledge base, this is okay too. Just make sure you decide or abide upon something, because we need to be consistent throughout our department, throughout our organization while working with documentation. Otherwise, we will find ourselves navigating between a lot of different systems for documentation. So again, I will cover docs as code in a bit, but I want to cover first some general content guidelines for writing a document. So first of all, you should have a table of content because it is essential for content discovery. And why is that? Because of the user flow. Any user, and please show me someone that behaves differently, but I even read it from an article online from 1997 that says that people don't read, they scan. So this is the user flow. Someone searches for something, any buzzwords, any title. So that's why you should have meaningful titles and subheadings to help the user find whatever they're looking for in the most accurate way possible. And then they scan the document that they found, they scan the options, the search results. If they found what they are looking for, awesome, they got to the result. But if not, they need to navigate elsewhere. So in order to help them navigate elsewhere, you should have links, a lot of links, to help navigate the user to somewhere else that potentially be the thing that they are searching for. And another thing that you can think about how to address that is you can think about documentation as microservices. Every document stands on its own, and then if you need to interact with something else, like how to document and you want to send the user to more information about, then have a link to the more information about in a different document, separate them, and then each one is like a microservice because they stand on its own, and just you can interact between the two and through a link, and that's basically that. Highlights. So you should highlight in your document in bold things that are important, like titles or anything that is important. And in terms of, and why is that? Because, again, people skim through a document, they scan it, so in order to help them do it, bold is the way to go. And in terms of colors, sometimes it could be controversial because some people are colorblind and there are accessibility issues, but at least in my experience, I noticed that even though I used bold, whenever I used red, like, be aware, be careful, don't do it, then the developers, okay, I got it. So if it's relevant for you, then use colors too, because it's useful. You know that green is good, red is like critical, and orange is like a warning. So have that in mind. Words and sentences. We said users scan and not read, right? So in order to help them scan, you should use short words and more sentences rather than longer words and fewer sentences, because that way they will be able to scan the document better. And also this. Simple English, okay? Don't try to be Shakespeare. Please, please, please don't try to be Shakespeare. Write simple American English that non-English speakers can easily understand. And I experienced it before where someone tried to be, I don't know, smart, and they're like, what did you mean by that? And then he said, and then I told him, no, it's not. So just write in a simple English that everyone can understand, and it will be super helpful. Let's cover Dox's code, this concept. So Dox's code, it basically uses Markdown, which means that you can still use table of contents and highlights and even colors if you want to. Markdown uses plain text, so it is human readable. It is easy to write in diff, and it is platform agnostic, so you can integrate it wherever platform that you see fit. The docs folder is in the same code repo, so docs are integrated in the dev toolchain and no need to leave the IDE, which from what I heard from a lot of developers, they really like to stay in their IDEs because they like to code. So that way they are still there and that's it. And you can even do PR review. So if, let's say, a document doesn't exist in that repo or to that code, then the PR will fail its merge because there's no document, or even to do PR reviews for the doc quality itself. Let's say the code got updated, but then the relevant document section for that code didn't get updated too. So this could be checked and get a failure on the merge because this section wasn't updated. And to help you with this kind of tests, there is such a term of CI/CD for tests, for docs. So you can do validations and you can make sure there are no broken links and to do some linters with that. And there are two tools that could help you with that. I haven't used them myself. I only saw a demo of Swim, which is an Israeli company. And Docosaurus was brought to my attention by a colleague of mine who is a technical writer. So these tools, you can check them out. I have, again, they don't pay me. So it's only for you to check it out and see if it could be helpful for you because they have a lot of features that could help with the CI/CD, the validations, and stuff like that. And also, Docosaurus, as I know, offers you to have like a UI for your documentation, which is awesome because it's more friendly use. So, and also versioning, stuff like that. And in terms of the tests, look on the right what Google says. So they say that docs thrive when they are treated like tests. A necessary chore one learns to savor because it rewards over time. And that's exactly it. Because the most painful thing that you can think about in terms of documentation is to update it, right? And if you do tests and if you have these validations, then this chore of updating the document becomes very easy and very ongoing in your day-to-day, and then you don't feel the pain, just happens and that's it. So use that, it's very good, and documentation should be part of our day-to-day, and it should be easy. I'm not saying you should spend your entire day on that, but you can use the tools and methods in order to make docs integrate in your day-to-day in the easy ways possible. This next section, the next phase of writing a technical document is to remember your audience. So at first we said to know your audience, now we need to remember them, AKA have the user flow in mind. So the GitLab migration that I did, the document that I wrote, I started out from the most used sections that I knew that my team would use, AKA the how to upgrade, because I knew GitLab had a lot of versions. They released like every month or something like that. So I started out from how to upgrade and then moved to certificates, how to replace, because certificates will get replaced every 2 years. And then integrations, like we had integrations with Jenkins, with Jira, and integrations you're going to do only when you deploy the system. So from the most used until the rarely used. Why? Again, because users scan the document. I want to help them do that. I want to help them see that whatever they need is right up there at the beginning, and then if they need something else, they can skim through the titles and find whatever they are looking for. Concept versus tasks. This is also very, very important in terms of remembering your audience, because you need to know what your audience wants. So if they want to know something, concepts, then write in the document information, background, explanations, reasoning, intentions. But if they want to do something, tasks, then write a how-to. And don't confuse the two. Don't put in the same document both information and how-tos, because if I'm in the middle of the night, I really don't care how the system works. I just want to do how to do X. Or if I'm onboarding, it doesn't help me to know how to do X because I need to know how the system works at the beginning. So know what you're writing about, separate the two, and then it's okay to have a link, like this is the information. If you want to know how to do X, then here's a link to how to document. So have these two types of documents separated, and that way you'll help bring the user back to their tasks as soon as possible and find whatever they need to. And the last section, the last phase of writing a technical document is to share the document that you wrote with others, so to have feedbacks. And why is that? Because let's say I wrote about, you guessed it right, the GitLab migration. So I know all about it because I did it, right? And I dealt with it for an entire month. But other people that are reading this document from the side doesn't know anything about this tool or this project that I did. So things that look straightforward to me, not necessarily look the same for them. And maybe I assume things that they know and they don't really know. So I need to give them the document, let them read it, and then they'll ask questions. They'll give me back the document for iterations to change, like, what did you mean by that? Or what is this? I don't know these initials. And I thought that everyone knows it, okay? So feedbacks are very, very important. Why? Because the document is there for them. I want them to use the document. So if they give me feedbacks, I know if it is helpful for them or not, and I can change it accordingly until the document is comprehensive enough and really helpful. And so I covered here how to write a technical document without being a technical writer, but if you still want to perfect your English, if you want to write in a higher quality English or have a higher quality state of a document, then I curated a document with a lot of writing tips by myself and a colleague of mine who is an actual technical writer. So you can take a picture of this QR code and get to this document. I'm gonna add more tips ongoing because I'm writing a lot of documents and I see a lot of things that people could be beneficial for them. So you can check it out, and I hope it will be helpful for you. So that's basically it. And for those of you who say, hey, I'm not a technical writer, I have this golden rule for you. So you should provide readers with the information they need and send them back to their task as soon as possible. And documentation should always be clear, simple, and to the point. And one tip for managers, I hope that there are managers here in this room. One tip for managers is that if you want to have a documentation an integral part of a task, and you don't have like a CI/CD yet, okay, and you don't know that people are actually gonna write it as part of the task, then the way to do it is to define a task definition of done, aka once the documentation was added, then you can close the ticket, and that way you make sure that the documentation is part of the day-to-day of the engineers that are working on the tasks. And I told you it's for managers, but I hope that you enjoyed this presentation and you really understand the benefits of writing technical documents. And if so, please ask your managers, hey, I know this task is urgent, but I wanna have like half more day to write a document for that. Please give me this time, and I'm sure that your manager will appreciate it. So I really hope that after this presentation, you can say that your code is now well documented. Thank you very much. And I think we have time for questions,
Hila.
if you have to.
You do. We have 5 minutes for questions. We have any questions for Hila? I'll need you guys to help out with the microphone going around the room. Questions, raise your hand. We have a gentleman over here.
Thank you. How do you deal with stale documentation, like things that just are inaccurate and old, and they're somewhere where no one remembers them? How do you clean up the technical doc debt?
So without having CI/CD and stuff like that, right? You mean without using these tools? So using these tools is helpful because they do it for you. So they swim, flags the relevant parts, and basically change the documentation for you for all parts, all references of the code that you mentioned, for example. So these tools are very helpful to prevent stale documentation. But if you don't use these tools, then you should have I would do a task of its own, like go over documentation and make sure it is updated. But on the day-to-day, once you are part of the team, you know which kind of documentation you have. So for example, I have written a document in my current job about the networking structure that we have in our VPCs in my department. And we had some changes. I added more subnets, and we did some changes, and I curated this document, so I know that I need to update it. But not only on my documents that I did. I know that I have a team member that wrote a document about Allspike implementation, and he just said that, hey, it doesn't matter which deployment you do, X, Y, Z. And then I said, wait, does it appear in the document that you wrote? No. Can you update it? So you need to be on top of things, like we have dailies, right? We have dailies, we know which tasks are being done in day-to-day, then you just have to have the documentation mindset. So once you know the tasks, you can say, hey, you changed this, but did you update it on the document? No, please do it. So it doesn't have to come from the manager. It also comes from me, because I want to know. I want to make sure I know all the things that are related to the system and are up to date. So I tell my team members, please update this, please update that, and that way we are able to make sure that the documents are not stale and really up to date, because we are on top of things. Thank you.